ladies and gentlemen, Kitty Worthman.
Thank you very much. I was born in Austria, and I lived there 7 years under Hitler's brutal regime. And after World War II, 3 years under Soviet communist occupation. In 1938, the media reported that Hitler rolled into Austria with tanks and guns and took us over. Not true at all. The Austrian people elected Hitler by 98% of the vote by means of the ballot box. Now, you might ask, how could a Christian nation, almost 100% Catholic, to elect a monster like Hitler? The truth is, at the beginning, Hitler didn't look like or talk like a monster at all. He talked like an American politician. We also had gun registration. Oh, the Austrian people they all had guns. But the government said the guns are very dangerous. Children are playing with guns, hunting accidents happen, and we really have to have total control, safety. And we had criminals again. And the only way that we can trace the criminal was by the serial number of the gun. So we dutifully went to the police station and we registered our guns. Not long after, they said, no, it didn't help. The only way that we don't have accidents and crimes, you bring the guns to the police station and then we don't have any crimes anymore and any accidents. And if you don't do that, capital punishment. So that's what we did. So dictatorship didn't happen overnight. It took 5 years, gradually, little by little, to escalate up to a dictatorship. When the people fear the government, that's tyranny. But when the government fears the people, that's you, that's liberty. Keep your guns and buy more guns.
A gun buyback that forced law-abiding citizens to surrender their firearms in a nationwide roundup and meltdown of all semi-automatic firearms and pump-action rifles and shotguns. 640,000 ordinary conventional firearms confiscated and destroyed.
It was an absolute joke and a tragedy. I actually turned in 3 firearms. And it broke my heart.
I mean, it was 40 years of collecting, and I can't say it any other way than that. I felt sick. I had to hand them in, because if I didn't, I was going to jail.
There's no ifs or buts about that. By taking that gun away from me, they've stolen something from me.
A right stolen by their government, promising safety in return for its gun bans. But now citizens know the frightening truth. The cost of lost liberty can be measured in the loss of life.
It's become very, very obvious, even to Blind Freddy, that the expenditure of $500 million has done absolutely nothing to reduce crime.
It certainly didn't do what the government touted it would do, which was to reduce crime. It hasn't done that at all. In fact, there's been more.
This has been a lot of bull and hasn't really done much to help society and with its problems.
Cold, hard facts the anti-gun forces can no longer escape. Armed robberies have skyrocketed, up 69%. Assaults involving guns rose 28%. Gun murders increased 19%. And a new phenomenon, home invasions jumped 21%. An increase politicians insist they can't explain because they're still trying to legally define what a home invasion is and what the penalty should be.
part of the difficulty is that there is no clear definition of home invasion in the law.
Never cease to be amazed at the ingenuity of lawyers.
If the politicians want a pay rise, boom, that's done in 20 minutes. But to define home invasion, what a joke.
I have no trouble at all in defining what a home invasion is. I think if someone sets their foot inside your door uninvited, they are invading your home and your privacy.
And victims who have survived home invasions don't need a definition. They've lived through hours of terror. Arthur Field was tied up, his hands and feet taped, his phone lines cut, while 2 robbers ransacked his house.
And they jumped on me and knelt on my chest and grabbed me around the throat because I immediately started calling out, "Help."
I don't know how many men, they start smashing the windows. There was a lot of glass shattering, a lot of noise outside, and I stood in the kitchen, I was trembling.
The Zawadzkis remember thugs running through their home, demanding money and threatening to kill them. Mr. Zawadzki says if he had a firearm, the suspects never would have gotten away.
Do you will standing, waiting till you get killed? Or you will defend yourself? Tell me true, you will defend yourself.
Scars that never heal, citizens left powerless. But it's criminals who have been empowered and emboldened by the new gun laws because the innocent can't fight back.
What's happening today is that the offender, the bad guys, are happy to break into somebody's house. They're not frightened to break into somebody's house while they're at home.
Citizens denied the right to protect themselves by a justice system that won't.
Well, my opinion of the legal system here is it's absolutely weak. Weak as water. I mean, they've just got no backbone. That the sentencing for various crimes is just pathetic.
And police who can't. They're undermanned and morale has never been lower.
It's very bad at the moment. It's never been worse. Since 1993, we've had a real decrease in over 230 sworn police officers in this state.
These policemen have joined the job, policewomen have joined the job to go out and do it, and they can't even attend at breaks or assaults because there's no vehicle to even get them there. I mean, that's just absolutely ridiculous.
Gun laws that have backfired. And Australians who have been forced to hide behind bars and deadbolts. Some are even installing extensive security systems because the firearms they still own that haven't been banned have to be locked up, unloaded, and unavailable.
I mean, get real. If I have someone break in here, I've got to go get the bolt, get the rifle, and find the ammunition somewhere else, put it all together, and then defend myself. If this other person's got a firearm, it's going to threaten my life. No way, it doesn't bloody add up.
A political fraud, gun bans that haven't made a difference, and gun owners now struggling to stop a growing momentum against them.
The people pushing the removal of guns from the Australian society are already saying that's only the first step, publicly, that's only the first step. Now we want the handguns, we want every other firearm.
They're warning to Americans, don't think it can't happen to you. It can, and it already is.
Unless you, as a firearms owner, get off your butt now and start to oppose those that want to take them off of you right here and now, I would say that within 5 to 10 years, the restrictions on gun owners in America will be similar to what happens in Australia.
Don't trust your politicians. Get in there, keep on their backs. Be a member of the NRA, be a member of your local gun club.
Be part of the NRA and never, ever, ever give up your freedoms, because that's, in the end, that's all you've got.
If you think you have rights, tomorrow the government can take them away from you.
I think the Americans have to be very, very careful because, their rights will be quickly eroded as ours have, and we don't have a chance in hell of getting those rights back.
Here's how the gun debate typically goes in America. A mass shooting happens, some form of gun regulations proposed, then the NRA and its supporters fire back with the Second Amendment. It seems like we've been in this gridlock forever, but believe it or not, there was a time when the NRA and the Republican Party actually supported gun control. And the reason had a lot to do with race. The Second Amendment wasn't originally intended to protect an individual's right to own guns. It was more about people's collective right to form militias and defend the nation. The gun laws of the time were written by and for white men, and they regulated logistics, like how to sell, trade, or carry guns in public. But after the Civil War, when newly freed slaves obtained guns, southern states rushed to pass black codes to disarm black people and reaffirm white supremacy. Fast forward to the 1960s, when the Black Panther Party was created in Oakland, California. This group of radical activists believed in using violence as a form of self-defense to fight against racism. They would drive around the city with loaded guns to patrol the police. Now, at the time, open carry was legal in California, but that all changed on May 2nd, 1967, when 30 Black Panther members marched into the state capitol with loaded guns in hand to protest a gun control bill that would essentially end their police patrols. Their argument for armed resistance was simple but bold.
The Second Amendment of the Constitution guarantees the citizen a right to bear arms on public property.
Back then, the NRA and the Republican Party weren't exactly on board with that take.
There is absolutely no reason why out on the street today a civilian should be carrying a loaded weapon.
Barely 2 months later, Ronald Reagan, who was California's governor at the time, signed the very bill the Panthers protested into law and banned open carry in the state. The NRA supported that bill, as well as the federal gun control law that passed a year after, which restricted access to Saturday night specials, a type of cheaper, lower quality handgun popular among low-income black communities. While the NRA took credit for the law, critics said it was really aimed at controlling black people rather than controlling guns. But here comes the great irony. Even though these gun control laws were aimed at keeping down radical black activists, many white gun owners feared the government would also come after their guns. So in 1977, that fear led to a dramatic internal coup within the NRA. Almost overnight, the NRA went from being a bipartisan marksman's club to the hardline, powerful gun rights lobby we know today. The new NRA took up the Panthers' interpretation of the Second Amendment, saying that it guaranteed individual citizens' rights to own and bear arms. Meanwhile, faced with the rising tide of gun violence and crimes related to the growing crack cocaine epidemic in the 80s, the black community began to embrace gun regulations. By the early 90s, black Americans were more than 3 times more likely to die from gun violence than their white counterparts. And sadly, because of persisting issues like systemic racism, poverty, and the lack of educational resources, gun violence still disproportionately affects black communities today.
Funerals have become our class family reunions. Facebook posts has become an update for was just killed this weekend.
The NRA, meanwhile, is using gun control's racist past to recruit black members.
The modern gun control movement is just today's version of the exact policies used to keep firearms out of the hands of freed slaves after the Civil War.
They, of course, conveniently leave out their own role in this racist history. And even though the NRA makes propaganda videos to appeal to black gun owners, the organization has come under fire for failing to speak up for them when their rights are under attack. Take the case of Philando Castillo, a law-abiding black gun owner who was shot dead by police during a traffic stop in 2016.
The police he's covered. He ain't killed my boyfriend. He's licensed. He's licensed to carry.
The NRA put out a general statement supporting gun ownership that didn't even mention Castillo by name. This lukewarm response triggered outrage from the black community and even drew widespread criticism from the NRA's own members. Over the last 30 years, the face of the gun rights movement has changed from radical black activists to mostly white rural conservatives. But one thing has not changed. In practice, the freedom to bear arms is not so much a right as a privilege.
Yes, they got together with guns, and there's nothing wrong with that, because we need some guns. Black people need some peace. White people need some peace. And we are going to have to fight. We're going to have to struggle. We're going to have to struggle relentlessly to bring about some peace, because the people that we're asking for peace, they're a bunch of megalomaniac warmongers, and they don't even understand what peace means. And we've got to fight them. We've got to struggle with them to make them understand what peace means.
Now it's time for a brief history of the United States of America. Hi,
Now, boys and girls, ready to get started? Once upon a time, there were these people in Europe called pilgrims, and they were afraid of being persecuted. So they all got in a boat and sailed to the New World where they wouldn't have to be scared ever again.
Oh, I'm so relaxed. I feel so much safer.
But as soon as they arrived, they were greeted by savages, and they got scared all over again.
Indians!
So they killed them all. Now, you'd think wiping out a race of people would calm them down, but no. Instead, they started getting frightened of each other. Witch! So they burned witches. In 1775, they started killing the British so they could be free. And it worked, but they still didn't feel safe. So they passed a Second Amendment which said every white man could keep his gun. I loves my gun. Loves my gun. Which brings us to the genius idea of slavery. You see, boys and girls, the white people back then were also afraid of doing any work. So they went to Africa, kidnapped thousands of black people, brought them back to America, and forced them to work very hard for no money. And I don't mean no money like I work at Walmart and make no money. I mean $0. Nothing. Not a zip. Doing it that way made the USA the richest country in the world. So did having all that money and free help calm the white people down? No way. They got even more afraid. That's because after 200 years of slavery, the black people now outnumbered the white people in many parts of the South. Well, you can pretty much guess what came next. The slaves started rebelling. There were uprisings, and old master's heads got chopped off. And when white people heard of this, they were freaking out and going, I want to live. Don't kill me, big black man. Well, just in the nick of time came Samuel Colt, who in 1836 invented the first weapon ever that could be fired over and over without having to reload. And all the Southern whites were like, yeehaw! But it was too late. The North soon won the Civil War and the slaves were freed. Yep, they were free now to go chop all the old masters' heads off. And everybody was like, oh no, we're gonna die. But the freed slaves took no revenge. They just wanted to live in peace. But you couldn't convince the white people of this. So they formed the Ku Klux Klan. And in 1871, the same year the Klan became an illegal terrorist organization, another group was founded, the National Rifle Association. Soon politicians passed one of the first gun laws, making it illegal for any black person to own one. It was a great year for America, the KKK and the NRA. Of course, they had nothing to do with each other, and this was just a coincidence. One group legally promoted responsible gun ownership, and the other group shot and lynched black people. And that's the way it was all the way to 1955, when a black woman broke the law by refusing to move to the back of the bus. White people just couldn't believe it. Huh? Why won't she move? What's going on? Man, all hell broke loose. Black people everywhere started demanding their rights, and white people had a major freaky fear meltdown, and they were all like, run away! Run away! And they did. They all ran fleeing to the suburbs where it was all white and safe and clean. And they went out and bought 250 million guns and put locks on the doors, alarms in the houses, and gates around the neighborhoods. And finally, they were all safe and secure and snug as a bug. And everyone lived happily ever after.